Namaskar and welcome. You're watching Newsnight. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and on the show tonight we'll take a closer look at the future roadmap proposed by Prime Minister as far as the COVID containment strategy is concerned. Remember, today he took a very important review meeting through video conferencing with chief ministers and states, and that's going to be a talking point tonight on the show. But first up on Newsnight, here are the headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds virtual meeting with chief ministers of states to review COVID-19 situation, warns against letting the guard down at this crucial juncture, reiterates government's commitment to provide vaccine to every citizen of the country, urges states to chalk out plan for fair distribution of vaccine, emphasizes on ramping up of RT-PCR testing and also pushing down positivity rate below 5%. Prime Minister Modi takes stock of the modalities of the COVID-19 vaccine delivery, distribution and administration. Prime Minister advised states to constitute screening committee and block-level task force. Prime Minister also emphasized on vaccine for all approach, adding the priority of vaccination to be decided in consultation with the states. India registers less than 40,000 daily new cases after 6 days. For the last 17 days in a row, daily new cases have been sustained below 50,000 mark. Recovery rate stands at 93.76%. Health Minister confirms work underway on at least 30 vaccines, out of which 2 vaccines are undergoing phase 3 trials. In other news, Prime Minister Modi speaks to Tamil Nadu Chief Minister and Puducherry Chief Minister on severe cyclonic storm Nivar, assures all possible help. Meanwhile, IMD says Nivar is likely to cross Tamil Nadu and Puducherry coast tomorrow evening. Fishermen advised not to venture out in seas, at least 30 NDRF teams on standby mode. 80th edition of the 2-day All India Presiding Officers Conference to begin in Kevadia in Gujarat tomorrow. Vice President Venkaiah Naidu, Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla arrives at Kevadia. Vice President pays floral tributes to Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel's statue. Prime Minister to participate in the concluding session on 26th, the day when the nation will celebrate Constitution Day. In other news, government blocks 43 mobile applications under Section 69A of the Information Technology Act. Action taken based on the inputs that these apps are engaged in activities which are prejudicial to sovereignty and integrity of India. Since June, government slaps ban on at least 220 mobile apps. And Philippines Tiger Reserve in UP wins TX2, the first ever international award for doubling the number of tigers. The Tiger Reserves achieves this in just 4 years against a target duration of 10 years. Martyrdom Day of Guru Tegh Bahadur being observed today. President Ramnath Kovind pays tribute, says his sacrifice inspires all of us to unite for the true service of humanity. And now for the top story in detail. Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Tuesday asserted that centre's priority is to make COVID-19 vaccine available for all, adding that states should put in place all necessary mechanism, including that for cold storage as well. Prime Minister Modi held a virtual meeting with chief ministers over the COVID-19 situation, and Union Home Minister Amit Shah also participated. Prime Minister spoke extensively on the future approach towards containing corona. We have a detailed report.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi chaired a high-level meeting with chief ministers of all states and union territories on Tuesday via video conferencing. The meeting was to review the status and preparedness of COVID-19 response and management, with special emphasis on 8 high-focus states. These states were Haryana, Delhi, Chhattisgarh, Kerala, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, Gujarat and West Bengal. The modalities of COVID-19 vaccine delivery, distribution and administration were also discussed. Prime Minister reassured that the government is keeping a close watch on the development of vaccines and is in contact with Indian developers and manufacturers, along with global regulators, government of other countries, multilateral institutions and international companies. He added that it will be ensured that the vaccine for citizens will meet all necessary scientific criteria. He also said that priority will be to ensure that the vaccine reaches everyone.
कोरोना के खिलाफ अपनी लड़ाई में हमने शुरुआत से ही एक एक देशवासी का जीवन बचाने को सर्वोच्च प्राथमिकता दी है। अब वैक्सीन आने के बाद भी हमारी प्राथमिकता यही होगी कि सभी तक कोरोना की वैक्सीन पहुंचे, उसमें तो कोई विवाद हो ही नहीं सकता है। लेकिन कोरोना की वैक्सीन से जुड़े भारत का अभियान अपने हर नागरिक के लिए एक प्रकार से नेशनल कमिटमेंट की तरह है। इतना बड़ा टीकाकरण अभियान स्मूथ हो, सिस्टमैटिक हो और सस्टेन हो, ये लंबा चलने वाला है। इसके लिए हम सभी को, हर सरकार को, हर संगठन को एकजुट होकर के कोऑर्डिनेशन के साथ एक टीम के रूप में काम करना ही पड़ेगा।
Prime Minister noted that the priority of vaccination is being decided in consultation with the states. The requirements of additional cold chain storages has also been discussed with the states. He asked the chief ministers to ensure regular monitoring of state-level steering committee and state and district-level task force to ensure better results.
केंद्र सरकार ने राज्यों से कुछ समय पहले आग्रह किया था कि स्टेट लेवल पर एक स्टीयरिंग कमेटी और एवं स्टेट और डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल पर टास्क फोर्स का, और मैं तो चाहूंगा कि ब्लॉक लेवल तक हम जितना जल्दी ये व्यवस्थाएं खड़ी करेंगे, इन कमेटियों की रेगुलर बैठकें हो, उनकी ट्रेनिंग हो, उनकी मॉनिटरिंग हो, और जो ऑनलाइन ट्रेनिंग होती है वो भी शुरू हो।
Prime Minister noted that the COVID pandemic can be broken down to 4 stages in India, adding that in the current 4th stage, people have developed a false notion of security from the virus, which is leading to rise in instances of negligence. Prime Minister emphasized that it is of utmost importance to increase awareness about the seriousness of the virus in this 4th stage.
आपदा के गहरे समंदर से हम निकलकर हम किनारे की तरफ बढ़ रहे हैं। हम सभी के साथ वो पुरानी जो एक शेर शायरी चलती है, ऐसा ना हो जाए कि हमारी किश्ती भी वहां डूबी जहां पानी कम था। ये स्थिति हमें नहीं आने देनी।
Prime Minister further remarked that the country has faced the pandemic through concerted efforts, and in terms of both recovery rate and fatality rate, the situation in India is better than most other countries. The Chief Ministers praised the leadership of the Prime Minister and thanked the central government for providing necessary assistance in improving health infrastructure in the states. They provided detailed feedback of the ground situation. They gave an overview of the rise in the number of cases, discussed issues like post-COVID complications, measures taken to increase testing, steps initiated like testing being done at state borders, going from home to conduct tests, curbs being put to reduce size of public gatherings, imposition of curfews and other crowd restrictive measures, awareness campaigns being run, and steps taken to increase usage of masks. They also discussed and gave suggestions about the vaccination drive. Union Health Secretary Rajesh Bhushan gave a presentation on the current COVID situation and shared details about preparedness. News 9 Desk, India.
And amidst a sudden spurt reported in few states recently as far as the cases are concerned, we now take a look at the numbers so far. Still then, the recovery rate has gone up. The case fatality rate continues its downward spiral. We have detailed report.
Despite reported spike in few states in corona cases, the fight to beat pandemic continues on war footing and is helping to stay ahead of the curve. Much of this is attributed to three-pronged strategy of testing, tracing and treatment. India has registered less than 40,000 daily new cases after 6 days. Number of daily new cases in the last 24 hours is 37,975. For the last 17 days in a row, daily new cases have been sustained below the 50,000 mark. India's testing infrastructure has been a significant boost with 2,134 labs across the country. Keeping in line with its commitment to conduct more than 1 million tests every day, 10,99,545 samples were tested in the last 24 hours. India's cumulative tests cross 13.3 crore. An average of more than 10 lakh tests are conducted daily, resulting in cumulative positivity rate sustained low. The cumulative national positivity rate stands at 6.87% as on Tuesday, less than the 7% mark. The daily positivity rate is just 3.45%. The tests per million has increased to 96,871 tests. 42,314 cases recovered and discharged in the last 24 hours. The active caseload has fallen to 4,38,667. The recovery rate has also increased to 93.76%. Total recoveries as of today are 86,04,955. 480 case fatalities have been reported in the last 24 hours. The Supreme Court has sought reply from the centre, states and union territories on a plea demanding a cap on RT-PCR tests uniformly at ₹400 instead of varying rates across the country for COVID-19 tests. Meanwhile, all states have ramped up efforts to contain COVID-19 spread. Night curfew has been clamped in some cities in Gujarat, including some cities in Madhya Pradesh. State administrations have urged people not to go complacent on masking up till the vaccine is out. Meanwhile, there is some good news on vaccine front. Oxford vaccine Covishield testing is on last stages. Its third phase trial under Serum Institute is underway, and in India its trial has reached last stage. According to Serum Institute, Covaxin is believed to be 70% effective. In December, Covaxin will seek clearance for emergency approval license from DGCI, after which it will be made available to general public. In India, the work is underway on at least 30 vaccines, out of which 2 vaccines are undergoing phase 3 trials.
In India, about 30 vaccines are in different stages of development. 2 of them are in the most advanced stage of development. Covaxin, developed through ICMR Bharat Biotech collaboration, and Covishield from the Serum Institute of India. Both are in phase 3 clinical trial stage. One of our pharma giants, Dr. Reddy's Laboratories, will distribute the Russian vaccine in India after conducting final stage human trials and receiving regulatory approvals.
If the vaccine results are very good, as is being projected in the media today, then the vaccine will be produced in large numbers by Serum Institute of India. Serum Institute of India is very capable of producing very large numbers of doses of the vaccine, and therefore vaccine would be available very soon after the regulatory approvals are obtained.
India is seen as the largest vaccine producer in the world, as the 60% of the world's vaccine is produced as well as exported by India. The work on the vaccine is underway on war footing, but the war against pandemic should not lose steam. With Nitendra Singh and Mukesh Shukla, Newsnight Desk, DD India.
So our in focus on Newsnight tonight is India fights COVID. Prime Minister takes review meeting today. Remember, it was a very important review meeting where states also participated. On the show tonight, we are joined by Dr. V.K. Paul, member Niti Aayog, who was also part of that meeting, and also Professor K. Vijay Raghavan, Principal Scientific Advisor, Government of India, Principal Scientific Advisor to the Prime Minister. Thank you very much, gentlemen, both of you. Really honoured to have such a high-powered panel on our primetime show Newsnight tonight. Dr. Paul, I would quickly like to come to you first for your opening remarks, considering you were part of that meeting. In fact, you also, did a detailed presentation. The sense that we would want to know as far as a future roadmap, the future blueprint is concerned in terms of COVID containment. How are we going to deal with that? Because we already have a target of going below 1% as far as the fatality rate is concerned.
In today's meeting, overall view was taken about the pandemic situation in the country, and also a special focus on 8 states where there are, for one reason or the other, disturbing trends. But the common points that emerge out of the weaknesses that still pervade from time to time in different places include the following. First, we need to ensure that the containment strategy is made absolutely effective on the ground, which means you test, you trace, you track, and you make sure that the positive cases are isolated, and the contacts of the positive cases, through contact tracing, are quarantined. They stay home so that they do not spread infection to other people should they have received infection from the positive case that they came in contact with. This is something which is critical. Likewise, it is critical the timely testing, and the right mix of testing between RT-PCR and rapid tests is done. If we don't do optimum testing, we miss the cases, we miss the contacts who harbor infections. Therefore, an effective testing which ensures that the positivity rate in a community, in a district, in a state is less than 5% is laid emphasis on. And there are gaps in that area. In some states, there are more issues because they're depending on the antigen testing, and that has a problem. So these 2 points in particular were highlighted. In addition, an appeal was made that COVID appropriate behavior should pervade among people so that there is primary prevention of the pandemic.
You talked about the gaps in the area. The state's response mechanism from here on, Professor Raghavan, taking this to you, sir, is very, very critical. Now, when we talk about the overall planning, when it comes to distribution, production of vaccine, the modalities involved, the priorities, that will be decided by the states. They will, of course, are key stakeholders here. What are your thoughts? Vaccine for all is a mantra that's very clear, and it's official now. Do you think it is just a matter of time, finally?
Yes, the vaccines will start coming out very soon. As you've heard, we have the Pfizer vaccine and the Moderna vaccines, which have had very promising results in the US. The AstraZeneca vaccine in partnership with Serum here, which is already stockpiled, will get approval over the next few weeks. That will also be available. And as Dr. Paul pointed out very nicely at the meeting today, the initial phases, you will see many vaccines getting approved, but not sufficient stockpiles. So there will be a prioritization amongst different parts of our society on who is going to get the vaccine on priority. Over a little later period, vaccines will become more and more available. So cumulatively, everyone who needs a vaccine will get it.
And this critical area, Dr. Paul, if you could just elaborate on it, the states will be given opportunity to accord priority when it comes to vaccine distribution. That's a pretty tricky area. How are we going to deal with that? Because vaccine for all is what we are looking at. All states would want to be part of that process as well.
Firstly, the whole approach toward vaccine delivery, distribution, and scale up and roll out will be prepared in partnership with the state governments.
Okay.
Whatever we do nationally is something on which we all agree in a system through a systematic process of sharing information, looking at the constraints, looking at the practical reality, and looking at the aspiration of ensuring that vaccine reaches everybody in time. The second part is that yes, when we have to prioritize in the presence of insufficient volumes of vaccines being available, then everybody cannot be covered in one go. In that situation, as Dr. Raghavan said, we need to prioritize. Now, the principles of prioritizing should be agreed by everybody, and those principles, as we understand, emerging from discussions within the country, within the groups, in the ministry, talking to state government, as also the discussions globally, are the following. Firstly, priority should be given to healthcare workers because they are fighting for us on the front line to save lives of people and risking their own health. Then the frontline workers who are engaged in pandemic control, like the police personnel, the disaster management volunteers, municipal workers. These two groups are required on priority to be protected so that our war against the pandemic remains solid and is never compromised. Then the next priority generally believed is that we should cover that population which has a high risk of mortality compared to others. For example, people above the age of 60, for example, have much more higher risk of mortality than somebody who is 40 years old. So there could be a consideration by age, and similarly, because underlying conditions such as diabetes, kidney disease, cancer, predisposed to mortality related to COVID-19 disease, it looks logical that those who have such morbidity should also be prioritized. So there is a discussion around these principles that in the first phase cover such a group, but then the final shape and number and grouping will be decided in consultation with the state government, and that process of engagement is already on.
And when we are conducting more than 10 lakh tests daily, the number looks very encouraging, Professor Raghavan. But what really explains the rationale of putting more emphasis on, ramping up the RT-PCR testing? Now, this seems to be a new and renewed strategy.
Well, the very simple point is that the RT-PCR tests are very sensitive and very specific. There are other tests, however, coming out very rapidly. And indeed, one has come out very recently from India, the Feluda test in partnership with the CSIR and the Tatas have been introduced now and they're being rolled out. They are much simpler to use, much faster, and have the same level of sensitivity and specificity. Over the period of the next few weeks, we will see more and more tests available, which are very sensitive and specific, and will give results very rapidly in a matter of a few hours. So testing will become very, very readily available, and this will allow workplaces such as offices, airports, railway stations, malls, homes, all of them to very rapidly test and then isolate as needed.
Dr. Paul, a quick overview. Now, ramping up of testing facility, we started with one lab many months ago at the very outset of the pandemic, the outbreak, and now we have a robust infrastructure available. I think in today's meeting, a lot of emphasis was also laid on further ramping up the medical infrastructure, especially at the micro level, especially at the rural level, because there is also some sense that in some districts, in some states, in some areas, the availability of oxygen cylinders, etc., that is a very crucial area. That is the area which really needs to be taken care of.
So a couple of things. One, that overall in the country, today there is no oxygen availability problem in principle. And I assure you that there was some constraint some time back. Even then, the capacities were there, but today there is no issue in terms of availability of oxygen access. Also, through PM CARES Fund, medical colleges and district hospitals are being provided freestanding oxygen concentrators of large capacity and of a very advanced technology being made available. But having said that, you have made an important point. Are the services available to our rural brethren and sisters, as well as in some of the better endowed urban areas? The answer is no. And therefore, today the Prime Minister highlighted the fact that let's work concertedly to ensure that COVID-related facilities, access to services, access to emergency care is made available more intensely to rural population of India. And this is stemming from the fact that now, having started in large cities and then moved on to tier 2, tier 3 cities, the pandemic to an extent has moved also to rural areas. So this point is well taken.
Is it a worrisome point? No, but why do you think we see that pattern? Is it a worrisome point?
No, it is already now there because rural areas are getting involved, although the intensity of the pandemic is much lower. But yes, we have to be ready to handle the problem in the rural areas, howsoever mild it may be, because we have to protect every life. And the point that has been made today is that you beef up facilities near the rural homes of people, which also would mean that an efficient connect with the ambulance system, efficient connect with peri-urban facilities where people can be shifted fast, and then using our primary healthcare system, such facilities, such facilitation should be made possible. It's a very important point that has been brought on today.
Okay. Professor Raghavan, a quick one. Are we soon going to reach that stage where we're looking at a fatality rate as the target set by our Honorable Prime Minister below 1%?
There has been an incredible climbing of the learning curve amongst our medical professionals right from our big cities to our smallest nursing homes and hospitals. This has resulted in a significant reduction in the fatality rate. Also, care at earlier stages and awareness at earlier stages of the disease has also amplified into the population substantially. This too has helped a lot. So overall, such a figure for less than 1% of the case fatality rate is certainly very realistic.
Okay, I'm going to quickly give you, both of you, 20 seconds to wrap up this discussion. Dr. Paul, a quick 5 points. We know that testing, treatment and trial, this is what has really helped us to stay ahead of the curve. But now when we look at the vaccine, now we look at dealing with the future, the COVID containment, large term forward planning, what are we really looking at? No more lockdowns?
There is no need for large-scale lockdown
Okay.
in containing the disease, provided we make sure two very fundamental things. One is our collective behavior. And as the Prime Minister pointed out today, कि अब इसमें हम ढिलाई बरत रहे हैं, हम इसमें responsibility पूरी नहीं निभा रहे हैं, हम lightly ले रहे हैं. Now this must change, because if our behavior is COVID-safe behavior, the pandemic remains small.
But do you sense that sense of complacency, कि हम अब थोड़ा lightly लेने लगे हैं, which should not be the case?
Yes, because the virus has not gone away anywhere. So much of our population is still susceptible. And let's admit it, even though the mortality may be low, but there are long-term consequences. And there is also mortality among the young people. So it should be taken seriously. The second issue is that our containment strategy, our disease control and surveillance strategy is critical. I would appeal that if you have symptoms, please get yourself tested, so that then you can be isolated. You can look after yourself. You can save your own self. But also, you protect other people. And secondly, I appeal that if you have been in touch with somebody who eventually is positive for COVID, you are a contact. And your responsibility is that you stay away, you stay in quarantine, you remain isolated at home, even though you may not have the disease. But then you watch yourself, and on 7th day or 8th day, get the test done, or remain in quarantine for about 12 to 14 days. So that you are conscious that you may be detecting symptoms and getting symptoms, and more importantly, you are out of the other people's reach, and you do not spread the disease to other people. Now that is in our national interest, because if you contain the disease, you don't allow the virus to reach from 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 16, and so on. Therefore, these two important responsibilities are also citizens' responsibilities, as well as a disease containment and surveillance system that we are trying to enforce.
Yes, absolutely, sir. Professor Raghavan, sir.
Thank you very much. These points were summarized really well by the Prime Minister this morning. First of all, we need to ramp up our health infrastructure at every level, right down to the level of the talukas. Groups need to get together and make sure that every need which needs to be fulfilled is in place as vaccination programs are rolled out and for healthcare right away. Also, it was pointed out that there are 4 stages in our people's response. First was of fear, when people reacted to this unknown. The second, doubts about the virus, and people tried to hide they were infected. Third, acceptance, when people became serious about it. And now there's a complacency as recovery rates go by. So these points need to be kept in mind as we continue, with masks, social distancing, and hygiene. The systematic vaccination, again, will roll out. But when, how, what priorities will be pushed by the science and by evidence. And therefore, people should stay calm, listen to what the scientific evidence is analyzed by the health ministry, the prioritization, and also understand how vaccination works, and not be susceptible to rumors about vaccination, which can spread. Vaccines are very important. They will be rolled out in a manner as science determines the safety and the efficacy, and when and where it should be rolled out.
Yes, on that optimistic note, thank you very much, both of you, for joining us on Newsnight tonight. Dr. V.K. Paul, member Niti Aayog, and also Professor K. Vijay Raghavan, Principal Scientific Advisor to Government of India, both of you. Really appreciate, basically, well, that was our talking point on Newsnight tonight, an overview of the future COVID containment national strategy spearheaded by Prime Minister. And now let's move on and talk about the other big stories that we've been tracking for you on Newsnight. Prime Minister and US President-elect Joe Biden share a personal passion for climate change and clean energy. Indian Ambassador to US Taranjeet Singh Sandhu stressed on this aspect in an exclusive interview to my colleague Ramesh Ramachandran. Take a look.
Both of them share a personal passion and commitment towards climate change and energy. And here, I would just like to mention to you that President-elect Biden was very closely involved with the climate change negotiations at that time, the Paris Agreement, and that's where the relationship comes from.
In other news of the day, moving on to Cyclone Nivar update, Prime Minister Modi spoke to Tamil Nadu Chief Minister and Puducherry Chief Minister on Cyclone Nivar update. The Indian Meteorological Department has now forecast widespread rainfall and thunderstorms over coastal and north interior Tamil Nadu, Puducherry and Karaikal on November 26th, basically over south coastal Andhra Pradesh as well as Rayalaseema region on November 25th and 26th, and southeast Telangana on November 26th. Well, this is the advisory for 25th and 26th of November in these areas in the wake of Cyclone Nivar. We have this detailed report.
Widespread rain is occurring in Tamil Nadu due to the cyclonic storm Nivar centered in the Bay of Bengal. Chennai and its nearby areas have witnessed waterlogging due to heavy rain for several hours. The Met Office said in Chennai that the cyclonic storm Nivar is centered about 380 kilometers east-southeast of Puducherry and 430 kilometers southeast of Chennai. It is very likely to intensify further into a severe cyclonic storm during the next 12 hours. Cyclone Nivar is very likely to cross Tamil Nadu and Puducherry coasts between Karaikal and Mamallapuram around Puducherry during 25th November 2020 late evening as a severe cyclonic storm with a wind speed of 100 to 110 kilometers per hour, gusting to 120 kilometers per hour. In view of the cyclonic storm, a high alert has been sounded in the coastal areas of Tamil Nadu and Puducherry. Fishermen have been advised not to venture into the sea.
25 तारीख में कोस्टल और नॉर्थ इंटीरियर तमिलनाडु में सबसे ज़्यादा बारिश होगा। लगभग सभी जगह पर बारिश होने के साथ साथ कुछ इलाका में हेवी टू वेरी हेवी रेनफॉल होगा और आइसोलेटेड प्लेसेस में एक्सट्रीमली हेवी रेनफॉल यानी 20 सेंटीमीटर से ज़्यादा बारिश हो सकता है।
DG of NDRF, SN Pradhan said that there are a total of 30 teams in Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu and Puducherry. As part of the 22 teams, 12 teams in Tamil Nadu, 3 teams in Puducherry and 7 teams in Andhra Pradesh have been pre-positioned at likely affected areas. Prime Minister spoke to Tamil Nadu Chief Minister E. Palanisamy and Puducherry Chief Minister V. Narayanasamy regarding the situation arising out of cyclonic storm Nivar. He assured of all possible help from the centre.
हमारे पूर्वी तट पे एक्टिव हुआ है, वो कल शायद तमिलनाडु, पुडुचेरी और आंध्र का कुछ हिस्सा वहाँ पर आगे बढ़ रहा है और सारी भारत सरकार की टीमें बहुत एक्टिव हैं, सब लोग गए हैं। मैंने आज 2 आदरणीय मुख्यमंत्री जी से बात की थी, भारत सरकार और राज्य सरकारें मिल करके, और पहला काम खाली करवाना, लोगों को बचाना, इस पर हमारा जोर रहे।
Tamil Nadu government has declared a public holiday in the state on Wednesday. Section 144 has been imposed in Puducherry to prevent loss of life and ensure the safety of the public. With Dheeraj in Delhi and inputs from Hyderabad and Chennai Bureau, Newsnight Desk, DD India.
And in view of cyclonic storm Nivar, the Cabinet Secretary Rajiv Gauba has chaired the National Crisis Management Committee meeting on Tuesday through video conferencing with the Chief Secretaries of Tamil Nadu, Puducherry and Andhra Pradesh as well as secretaries of different ministries. Chief Secretary said that our aim should be to ensure that there is no loss of life damage is minimum and normalcy is restored in power, in telecom and other important sectors in shortest possible of time. Cabinet Secretary has chaired this meeting. DGIMD briefed the committee about the latest situation of Nivar cyclone. The Cabinet Secretary also assured all necessary central assistance to the state governments to overcome this situation. These are the high points of that meeting taken by or chaired by Cabinet Secretary. And now let's move on to the other stories of Newsnight. Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India has issued an order on Tuesday under Section 69A of the Information Technology Act, blocking access to 43 mobile apps. Now, this action was taken based on the inputs regarding these apps for engaging in activities which are prejudicial to the sovereignty and integrity of India, defense of India, security of the state, as well as public order. Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology has issued this order for blocking the access of these applications by users in India based on comprehensive reports received from Indian Cyber Crime Coordination Center, Ministry of Home Affairs. Remember, earlier on 29th of June 2020, the Government of India had also blocked access to at least 59 mobile applications, and on 2nd September 2020, 118 more applications were banned under Section 69A of the Information Technology Act. Government is committed to protect the interests of citizens and sovereignty and integrity of India on all fronts, and it shall take all possible steps to ensure that. And I'm going to quickly go across to Shubhimal Bhattacharjee, cyber security expert and analyst, joining us on this story on Newsnight. Shubhimal, very quickly, just an overview, because if you look at the numbers, we've crossed 200 mark when it comes to government slapping bans on these applications. Basically, the messaging is very important there, that India will not compromise when it comes to internal security, when it comes to sovereignty.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you see after today, all the three large Chinese companies having multiple apps, all three of them have seen, Tencent, then ByteDance and Alibaba, all their basket of apps, which definitely, arise or a lot of concerns arise because of the collection of data and then sending out the data, sensitive personal information also to servers outside the country. So this definitely come under the purview of the Section 69A of the IT Act. And as you are aware, the Section 69 of the IT Act is handled with the help of the rules that have been notified in October 2009. So there is very well clearly laid out procedures under which such blocking happens. So it's just not a haphazard order. Since 29th of June, in 4 attempts, a large number of these websites and apps, specifically here, these are being banned and blocked, and they are done in a very, very methodical and purely legal way.
Yes, systematic way. But if you could just talk about the profiling of these apps, especially in the third phase, today when these applications that have been banned, they're all China-based?
Yeah, absolutely. They are all China-based, and most of them are very popular also. And if you see, most of their, say funders, primarily those three names that I've taken, and today in this case, most of Alibaba's basket apps have been taken off. Now, they are all looking forward to get into the Indian IT and, the emerging space. This is a big business opportunity. And, and today a lot of the security risks come through all these digital platforms and all. So while, China tries to trouble this, country with all these nefarious activities that we have seen from Ladakh to many other places, and, we provide them platforms.
Will this go in a long way as a cybersecurity expert in terms of crippling China's intentions, getting into our system through cyberway?
Yeah, absolutely. It's at the end of the day, what is Section 69 saying? As you have mentioned it, the sovereignty and integrity of the country, friendly relation with foreign countries, public order, threatening India's defense. So all of these are very, very clearly defined, provisions, even in the freedom of expression and that we have under Article 19 of the Constitution. The exclusion mentioned these things. So I think the foremost thing is national security and the sovereignty and integrity of the country. And this particular apps, they're collecting data and sending out of the country. That itself is a risk. That hasn't stopped. If you see, even from the first and the second efforts of, when blocking had happened, there were many proxy sites by which those particular ones again came up, to lure some of the, young minds in the country. So I think the government is right and consistent in its steps in terms of, continuing this. And by now,
there seems to be a very systematic approach by the government in terms of snapping or slapping bans on these China-based applications. Not really speculating, but do you think this exercise might continue in future as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
If at all some other Chinese apps are still existing.
Oh yes, absolutely. There isn't. It's 100%. It's not only the Chinese apps that are going, many other apps are also being targeted. Anything that has an impact on the security of the nation. And as I told you, there is a committee that looks into it. It's not one particular department of the government.
Okay.
Four, five ministries have the representative. They take a call. Then it goes to the IT secretary of the country who authorizes it. So there are sufficient checks and balances, and all these ministries, they have their own understanding around the national security issues. So I think what is being done is absolutely right, and most importantly, it's a message also to China that whatever way you try to make noise after every ban and all, and trying to talk of WTO and all this kind of forum that they want to take us, but we are very, very clear. And at the end of the day, it's our sovereignty. As we have shown on the borders, we are also showing in the digital world, and I think the message is very clear. Still, they are not understanding. Still, they keep on doing all the nefarious activities, and a lot of the cyber attempts are made on very many Indian networks. So these are things that just don't convince anybody that China's digital presence is always helpful for the global communities. Not only India, there's so many other countries and networks. They are regularly trying to snoop or trying to pick up information and all. So I think as a corrective step, we have to stop our information going out, to those servers and all. And government has a very clear, position. They'll let them put the servers here, let all this data remain in the country and all, then obviously there is no reason.
So this is, very quickly, this has clearly crippled China's digital presence in cyberspace. Because I think that's a very critical message here. And if China doesn't walk the talk, they better be prepared to bear the consequences, which they are.
Yeah, absolutely. You see, India is one of the biggest digital markets in the world.
Right.
The footprints, the number of people that are connected now, the pace at which Digital India is enabling more and people coming in. So this is a target market for these Chinese companies, where their own country stifles all kinds of internet presence and all.
Yes. Shubhamal, I'm sorry, we'll have to wrap it up here. That's all we have time for in this edition of Newsnight to discuss this with you. Really appreciate you joining us on the show. Thank you very much, Shubhamal Bhattacharjee, cyber security analyst, for joining us. Let's move on quickly now. Uttar Pradesh's Philippe Tiger Reserve has bagged the first ever international award TX2 for doubling the number of tigers in 4 years against a target of 10 years. It achieved this goal in just 4 years from 2014, when it had just 25 tigers, which went up to 65 in 2018.
Pilibhit Tiger Reserve and the Uttar Pradesh Forest Department have made the whole world stand up and took note of their achievements after doubling the number of tigers in 4 years against a target of 10 years. Pilibhit Tiger Reserve have bagged the first ever international award TX2 for the conservation and preservation of the majestic animals. Union Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change Prakash Javadekar hailed the award given to the Tiger Reserve. In his tweet, Union Minister wrote, "Congratulations to Team Pilibhit Tiger Reserve for winning the Global TX2 Award in recognition of its consistent conservation efforts and more than doubling the tiger population from 25 in 2014 to 65 in 2018. SP Yadav, ADG Project Tiger, said the award once again showcases India's commitment in preservation and conservation efforts for the majestic beast.
This is a wonderful achievement, and I'm glad that the international community is recognizing, they have recognized our tiger conservation efforts in the country, and for the excellent effort they're doing in the transboundary collaboration with the Royal Manas Tiger Landscape of Bhutan. There a lot of coordination is being done, like joint monitoring, patrolling. The tigers are moving from Indian Manas to Royal Bhutan Manas, and the both sides, they are taking due care in conservation and protection of tigers.
Pilibhit Tiger Reserve was the first to receive the award among 13 tiger range countries. It achieved this goal in just 4 years from 2014, when it had 25 tigers, which went up to 65 in 2018. The award was virtually presented to the Principal Chief Conservator of Forest of the state by United Nations Development Programme. The success to rigorous patrolling with constant use of monitoring system for tigers' incentive protection and ecological status M-Stripe, stringent action against wildlife criminals and poachers, and forest and grassland management efforts of the forest staff proved to be the main difference in achieving the target. Taposh Bhattacharya's report, GD India.
Well, moving on, the 80th All India Presiding Officers Conference is held on 25th and 26th November in Gujarat's Kevadia district. Now, during this, Constitution Day will also be celebrated on November 26th. Remember, this year's theme of the conference is coordination between executive, legislature and judiciary for strong democracy. President Ramnath Kovind will be addressing the inaugural session, while Prime Minister Modi will be addressing the valedictory session.
The 80th All India Presiding Officers Conference will be held on 25th and 26th November in Gujarat's Kevadia. On 25th November, President Ramnath Kovind will address the inaugural session on the first day of the two-day conference. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu will also address the presiding officers. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will address the valedictory session of the conference on 26th November. This year, the theme of the conference is coordination between executive, legislature and judiciary for strong democracy. During this, the Constitution Day will also be celebrated on 26 November. It has been 71 years since the Constitution was adopted. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu reached Kevadia on Tuesday after offering tributes at the Statue of Unity. He took a tour of the Statue of Unity campus. Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla was also with him. Lok Sabha Speaker reached Kevadia via the seaplane service, which was inaugurated by the Prime Minister. Addressing the press conference, Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla has said that through this conference, efforts are being made to strengthen the democratic system and to promote a sense of unity and integrity in the legislatures of India.
भारत के संविधान में तीनों लोकतांत्रिक संस्थाओं को अपने अपने अधिकार दिए, संविधान में अधिकार भी दिए, दायित्व भी दिए, और तीनों अंग मिलकर अपनी अपनी सीमाओं के अंदर संविधान की रक्षा का भी काम करते हैं और लोकतंत्र को मजबूत भी करते हैं.
The LS Speaker said that the collective efforts of our honorable legislators have helped change the legislatures with the changing times. The deliberations during the sessions of these conferences have resulted in the introduction of new practices in parliamentary democracy.
आप 17 लोकसभा के अंदर देखें, अभी तक सभी माननीय अध्यक्षों ने सदन की गरिमा को ऊपर उठाने का काम किया है, और हमारी कोशिश रहती है कि हम सदन की कार्रवाई चलाते समय बिना किसी पक्ष विपक्ष के सबको साथ लेकर सदन चलाएं. 4 सत्र अभी तक इस लोकसभा के अंदर हुए हैं. हर सत्र में हमने हमारी उत्पादकता को भी बढ़ाई, हमारी प्रोडक्टिविटी भी ठीक करी है, हमने प्रोसीजर भी ठीक किए हैं.
On the occasion of Constitution Day, an audio-visual exhibition has been organized in Kevadia about the history of the Constitution and the process of Constitution formation. Through this exhibition, the effort will be to create awareness about the Constitution and its constitutional rights.
इस एग्जीबिशन में, इस प्रदर्शनी में हम कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के बारे में, भारत का कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन कैसे बनाया गया, उसके बारे में विस्तृत जानकारी देने वाले हैं। इस एग्जीबिशन में एक खास बात यह है कि भारत में ये जो डेमोक्रेटिक प्रिंसिपल्स या डेमोक्रेटिक स्पिरिट जो है, ये वेद काल से ही है। जैसे सभा समिति हुआ करते थे, उनके बारे में वहाँ से शुरू होते हुए जिस तरह से कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन का फ्रेमिंग हुआ, कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली के मेंबर्स कौन कौन थे, उनका क्या योगदान रहा, वो सब चीज़ों को हम एग्जिबिट्स के दौरान और मल्टीमीडिया के दौरान हम इस प्रदर्शनी में दिखाने का प्रयत्न कर रहे हैं।
With inputs from Shishir Shelar in Kevadia, Newsnight Desk, DD India.
And the nation and the world is observing 345th Martyrdom Day of Guru Tegh Bahadur on Tuesday. Guru Tegh Bahadur ji sacrificed his life to safeguard religion, ideals and belief. And across the world, Guru Tegh Bahadur is celebrated as a true champion of religious freedom who taught his followers to be fearless in the pursuit of justice.
The nation and the world is observing the 345th Martyrdom Day of Guru Tegh Bahadur on Tuesday. According to the Nanak Shahi calendar, the 24th of November each year is observed as the Shahidi Divas of the 9th Sikh Guru. Guru Tegh Bahadur sacrificed his life to safeguard religion, ideals and belief. He is considered to be the true embodiment of the sentiments of love, devotion and sacrifice. He has an unrivaled place in world history for offering up his life to safeguard religion, humanitarian values, ideals and principles. It was in the year 1675 that Guru Tegh Bahadur made the supreme sacrifice. Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb sentenced the 9th Sikh Guru to death as he had refused to embrace Islam. Guru Tegh Bahadur was publicly beheaded. The Shishganj and Rakabganj Gurdwaras in Delhi stand witness to this day of Guru Tegh Bahadur's bravery. President Ramnath Kovind paid rich tribute to Guru Tegh Bahadur on his Martyrdom Day. In a message, President said, "Tributes to Guru Tegh Bahadur ji on his Martyrdom Day. Guru Tegh Bahadur made supreme sacrifice to protect the faith, belief and rights of the people. His teachings and work will continue to spread the spirit of love and patriotism among all of us." Union Information and Broadcasting Minister Prakash Javadekar also bowed to the 9th Sikh Guru on the occasion of his Martyrdom Day. He tweeted, "I bow hundreds of times before the 9th Sikh Guru, Guru Tegh Bahadur ji on his Martyrdom Day for sacrificing his life to safeguard the religion." World over, Guru Tegh Bahadur is celebrated as a true champion of religious freedom. He also taught his followers to be fearless in the pursuit of justice. Newsnight Desk, DD India.
And before we wrap up, quick look at these international stories. World Health Organization Director General Tedros has said that there has been marked progress in the research and development of COVID-19 vaccines, with positive news from vaccine trials bringing real hope in ending the pandemic. During a press briefing, the WHO Director General stressed that the international community must set new standards for access to vaccines, with the equitable distribution of vaccines being urgent as vaccine research and development. More on World Update. Millions of Americans appeared to be disregarding public health warnings and traveling ahead of the Thanksgiving holiday, which is likely to fuel an alarming surge in coronavirus infections before a series of promising new vaccines are expected to become widely available. Director of U.S. National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, Dr. Anthony Fauci, has expressed serious concerns over disregarding of these health warnings of Americans as U.S. infections of the highly contagious respiratory virus continue to spread swiftly, hitting a new record of 168,000 new cases per day on average reported. Many travelers expressed equal parts of determination as well as dread. The long Thanksgiving holiday weekend, which begins on Thursday, is traditionally the busiest U.S. travel period of the year, and 2020 may prove to be no exception. 4 months ago, 19-year-old Jose Martinez was a regular high school student. Today, he is the sole carrier and provider for 4 of his 5 young siblings, including one with special needs after the death of their mother. In mid-August, Martinez and his mother started feeling unwell. Both their COVID-19 tests came back positive, and a few days later, his other 4 siblings also became infected by the virus. 42-year-old Brenda Martinez was a diabetic and was admitted to hospital. She never came home and died from the coronavirus on August 26th. On August 24th, Martinez watched medical staff try to save her life via Zoom. Now, in the last 3 months, Martinez has had to learn how to take care of his siblings and manage a home, pay the bills and balance a budget. US President-elect Joe Biden was formally given the go-ahead by a federal agency to begin his transition to the presidency shortly after the battleground state of Michigan certified him as a winner there. With the rapid-fire developments, President Donald Trump's already languishing efforts to overturn his November 3rd defeat appeared to be coming to a close. The US General Services Administration, an independent agency, informed Biden that his transition leading up to a January 20th swearing-in could officially begin. Now, in a tweet, Trump wrote that GSA Administrator Emily Murphy and her team should do what needs to be done with regard to initial protocols and have told my team to do the same, quote-unquote. The move by the GSA means Biden's team will now have federal funds and an official office to conduct his transition over the next 2 months. It also paves the way for Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris to receive regular national security briefings that Trump also gets. And the only surviving shock model cast for the 1975 Oscar-winning film Jaws found its final home this month at the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures in LA. The museum unpacked and installed the 544 kilograms 25-foot model Shock, nicknamed Bruce the Shock, last week. This model was the fourth and final model derived from the original mold, the museum said in a statement. 4 penguins from Chicago's Shedd Aquarium stormed the stadium in a recent visit to neighboring Soldier Field. Izzy, Darwin, Tombo and Charlotte explored the locker room of the NFL's Chicago Bears and got plenty of exercise on the field, which was set up that day for Chicago Fire MLS match. The penguin field trips are important for the birds, providing variety and ensuring that just like in the wild, no 2 days are the same. Field trips to various locations in and around the city are a regular part of the penguins' routine. And with that, it's time to wrap up this edition of Newsnight. But remember, as always, a polite reminder to take care of your loved ones and yourselves. Frequent hand washing, social distancing and masking is extremely important. Thanks for tuning in. Namaskar.